Spencer Oliver has rejigged his very, very busy personal diary and is in here because, Spence, as you know, we're waiting for the EFL fixtures to come out. They will come out, and we'll bring the top ones to the listeners, to the viewers, before we go at 1 o'clock. So we thought, right, Spence, instead of 12 noon, we'll go at 11:45. Although I understand, I'm reliably informed that you thought it was the NFL fixtures that were coming out.
I did, Jim, and you know, juggling that 15 minutes around has been difficult in my day, to be fair. You know, 12 o'clock, I'm regimental in our movement, so getting here was difficult. We believe
we had to tease you out of Sainsbury's round the corner not a bit earlier than we normally would. Spencer, it's good to have you on board. So much to get through. I don't really know where to start. All good relationships find their natural end point, do they not? And I know you've been in conversation with Simon in Top Boxing on this. But why is it at this time that promoter Alex Krassyuk has split with top fighter Oleksandr Usyk?
This was an unusual one for me, actually. It was a surprise for me, this split, because Alex Krassyuk and Oleksandr Usyk have been together from the beginning, since the Olympics. When he turned professional, you know, he's become two undisputed champion in two different weight categories. They've had a great relationship, and when you see them on the surface of it all seems fine. So look, we don't know the ins and outs of it, why they've split. Will that have an effect on the fight come July the 19th? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's not going to hamper the preparations of Oleksandr Usyk in any way, shape or form, but it is very strange that they've split.
What do you read into it, Simon?
I go with Spencer. I mean, when Alexander was in here, he was in with Aegis Klimas, wasn't he? He wasn't in with Krassyuk.
Yeah.
And we were going to do something with Krassyuk, and he couldn't do it then at that time. And that all seemed a bit strange because it was arranged to have Alex do something, wasn't it? It feels to me like it's a strange time to do something. You can understand if there's a lull between fights and ultimately the fight gets won, the fight gets lost, and there's a change of relationships. But leading up to the fights, it seems like a strange thing to have done. You know, I suppose you're always leading up to a fight, but we're right on the cusp of a fight now, 2 or 3 weeks away from a major fight.
Yeah.
And it would have been the logical time from a point of view of not understanding the mechanics of why they've done it, to go, well, surely this fight gets finished, and then bang, at the end of this fight, outcome is whatever it is. Thank you. We're going our different ways. Now, of course, Oleksandr Usyk may simply be the beneficiary of some additional revenue from this because he doesn't have to pay his manager the commission fees that he'll be getting from it. Do I think it affects the outcome? No. But any distraction in a boxer's life can't be helpful. We heard the other day from Ben Davidson talking about the fact that Anthony Joshua was knocked out of his rhythm, potentially, without attributing the blame to the loss of Daniel Dubois by the fact he was very late to the arena. Losing somebody from an entourage, and boxers have entourage that keep their minds focused, keep them relaxed, keep them in the same space. Having somebody come out might be a distraction, and it might not be. But we're talking about somebody like Usyk, who, to me, is zeroed in on what he does. And I think
no matter what,
if it were anyone else, I think there might be a distraction. But with Usyk, I don't think so.
It was interesting though, Spencer. We went to Team Usyk, and they gave us an exclusive statement. Sergei Lapin, the head of Team Usyk, and in that statement, there's a standout few words. Usyk reached a point where it was time to build something of his own.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, I think he's at the stage of his career where they're saying that they feel now that they can do things on their own. He's got that power, you know. He's built, you know, he's built his what's the word that I'm looking for? He's built that team, and he feels that now the promoter is not needed at this stage of his career. Look, we're talking about Oleksandr Usyk here, and it'd be fair to say this could be his last fight. He may have one other fight after that.
Do you get the whiff of economics about this, Spence? Because if indeed you're at a stage now where you are a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You don't really need a promoter. You know, the promoter isn't putting this event together to some extent. Of course, the logistics of it are, and of course, they're valuable in the equation. But when you're Oleksandr Usyk and you look around and you know your own mind, and you've seen the fellow in the studio, this man is not a fool. He's perfectly capable of operating at this stage in his life. So if he's sitting there going, I'm paying 15% of a 50, 60, 70, 80 million pound purse for things I could do myself, it feels to me that there might be some of that in the mix.
I totally agree. Listen, look, when you look for it and you go through the layers of it all, and you try and understand it all, and they've been together and they've got a great friendship as well. It can only come down to that, the business side of things. And what Oleksandr Usyk now looking at it saying, look, I've only got a couple of fights left, and maybe Alex Krassyuk has run its course, and we don't need to do that now. You know, I can do these things on my own, and because of that, you know, the financial reward and loss in all of this, he goes, well, we may as well do it without Krassyuk. I mean, but we're talking about a word called loyalty as well, and that comes into play as well when you look at it and you say, well, is there more than that? Because
they've
always
together
seemed
from
to
the start, 12 years.
And a great friendship, Jim. I must say that. You know, these guys are a tight-knit team. So that's why it's more of a surprise to me than anyone else. If I'd heard it about anyone else in any camp, I would sort of understand it more. It'd be down to the business
Lewis
side.
Simon up in Falkirk in Scotland. Maybe Usyk's manager didn't want him to take the fight. Maybe they've had a fallout about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. A promoter with a conscience. I wouldn't want you to go into a fight that you're perfectly capable of going into. You're comfortable yourself, and I wouldn't want to get paid for that. So I'm more worried about. There may be that, but he knows his sport better than everybody. The fact of the matter is, people stuck Muhammad Ali into rings in the 80s when he should have never been there. We're seeing fighters get put into fights all the time. The row about what promoters do and don't do. He may be the one. He may be the one promoter of all the promoters that, above all, is more concerned about the well-being of the fighters than himself.
There's no cause to be concerned about the well-being of a fighter like Oleksandr Usyk because he's shown no signs of deterioration. He's beat Daniel Dubois already, and he's going over old ground, so that wouldn't fit at all.
Back with boxing, and Spencer Oliver has been sitting very quietly and listening to all the EFL news. You happy you now know who plays who in the opening day?
Oh, very happy.
Yeah. Spencer, thank you for that for that short but quite direct answer.
That's about as much as I could give you if I'm totally honest, Jim.
Here's one for you as we head towards the break, Spence. After a year away from the ring, Deontay Wilder back tomorrow night to face Tyrrell Herndon in Kansas. I've been to Kansas. What's your take on that? Is this an easy one for Wilder's return?
It should be an easy one for Wilder's return. Tyrrell Herndon lost in 2023 to Richard Torres Jr., who was a 6-0 prospect coming through, and he was taken apart in a couple of rounds. So really, Deontay Wilder should be doing a job. If he's got anything left, has he got anything left? We haven't seen any evidence of that recently. I mean, you look at the fight against Yele Zhang, and he looked a shell of his former self. Against Joseph Parker, he did as well. So I'm not sure how he's going to rewind the clock, but if he does, and he wins, he puts himself back in the mix.
Do you think Wilder can find relevance again, Simon?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, again, Spencer can comment on it more, but once the fight appears to have left you, I should imagine it's very difficult to get it back in again. And what we saw was a person that was amputated from his spirit in terms of the fighter that we saw once before. The Fury fights had obviously taken their toll. And what we saw in a Joseph Parker fight, which Joseph rebuilt his reputation on, was there wasn't the Deontay Wilder that we once knew. And it was even worse against Yele Zhang, wasn't it?
It certainly was. Yeah, it certainly was.
So it appears even I would have a chance against Tyrrell Herndon, whether it's in Kansas or not, although I'm not so sure about that. Good luck to Deontay tomorrow. When is it? A year away? Yeah, tomorrow night. Wilder back in the ring, and we'll see how he does. A lot to get through between now and 1 o'clock with Spencer Oliver, who joins us live on the show this lunchtime. Now that the EFL fixtures are released, and we know all about them. Thanks to Sam Matterface for joining us. We're live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.